Good morning and welcome to AM News Network presents the Morning Report with Rachel Baird and Ed Peruta. I'm Rachel Baird. This is Ed Peruta. We're here every Monday through Thursday from 7 to 7:30 a.m., transmitting live from our American News Media Center studio here in Harwinton, Connecticut. Join us on Saturdays from 4 to 6, where we are co-hosted by and with retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Tyszkka. Ed, yesterday we talked about an FOI hearing, and I have to say, both of us seemed to lack some energy yesterday. Not sure why. You didn't have a whole lot of expectation about that FOI hearing, but you went. I was working on a complaint. I came in the last part of it and watched some of it and was impressed with the issues that were being raised. But you were there for the whole thing. You did it yourself. You were pro se. And my understanding is a lot of interesting information came out. So set it up, because yesterday we weren't even sure in the morning what the FOI hearing was going to be about. And while he's doing that, I'm actually working on a motion in your case, your First Amendment Hartford case. We filed a motion to disqualify Corporation Counsel because Corporation Counsel had advised the Hartford Civilian Review Board not to address your civilian complaint because you had filed a federal complaint. And our argument was, number one, the board's independent and Corporation Counsel shouldn't be telling them what to do. Number two, especially when it's a conflict, because Corporation Counsel defends against federal lawsuits, so of course they don't want the Hartford Civilian Review Board to be looking at the underlying events that brought the federal lawsuit. So that motion is still pending. We argued it in federal court in front of Magistrate Judge Martinez. But I, based on the information you provided me, and I have to listen to the tape recording from yesterday, I am considering supplementing our motion to disqualify Corporation Counsel because it appears not only did they meddle, M-E-D-D-L-E, with the Civilian Review Board, but they appear to have meddled with the Hartford Police Department by telling them not to release information responsive to your FOI request because there's civil litigation pending. And of course they brought up the excuse that coincidentally every officer at the Park Street incident and at the Kelsey Street incident, it would be a danger to society to release their photographs or names because
officer safety,
because they're all under they're undercover or officer safety or whatever. It's amazing that every one of them that appeared at both scenes, it would be unsafe to release their pictures or names. And I believe the hearing officer, and I'm going to stop and let you go. It's only 7:03, so you're going to have plenty of time. But I just want to let people know that while I'm sitting here typing, while he's talking, I'm working on my motion to supplement based on what he's saying. Of course, I'll listen to the tape ahead of time. But there are ways to raise these privileges or exemptions to the FOI, and of course Hartford didn't do that. So we suspect that officer safety, undercover work, really wasn't the reason why the information wasn't released. We suspect that Office of Corporation Counsel didn't want it released to us because we had filed a federal lawsuit. So there's more retaliation against Ed Peruta and American News for simply filing a lawsuit. I got to tell you, the Office of Corporation Counsel runs that city in a way where it's obvious why the city is in the condition it's in. I'll just put it that way.
All right.
I'll let you go from here.
All right. Let me set this up to begin with. Yes, a federal lawsuit was filed against known individuals and John Doe individuals that we could not identify. Officers, supervisors, whatever, were listed as John Does.
Yep.
The Civilian Review Board investigator said under oath at a deposition that she could not identify Sergeant Sean Spell in the video. That she attempted, she didn't identify who it was. And the officers that we deposed under oath, couldn't understand why their names did not appear on what's called the computer-aided dispatch heartbeat system as even being at the scene. Several officers said that. Now, on August 26th, 2016, I filed a Freedom of Information request seeking, and I read this into the record, 2 areas of information. 1, all Hartford Police Department photographs of individual Hartford police officers who were present at a homicide on Park Street on the night of September 12, 2014, together with all photographs of Hartford police officers who were present at a homicide at 38 Kelsey Street on the night of August 7, 2015.
Okay.
Number 2, photographs of all Hartford police officers assigned to the department's shooting task force who responded to or were at the scene of a homicide in 38 Kelsey Street in the city of Hartford at 8:30 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on the night of August 7th, 2015. Now, I went in my request to even explain a portion of why I needed the photographs. At least one Hartford police officer who was present at the Kelsey Street homicide refused to identify himself when asked by the undersigned to do so. Now, I believe it's Officer Menendez or whatever his name is. Medina. An officer, I was videotaping, and an officer came and stood right in front of my camera and ordered me to move to the right, move to the left, and threatened me with trespass arrest if I did not move. He was tall, he was wearing a baseball cap, he was clean shaven, and I eventually moved to talk to Sergeant Sean Spell, or because Sergeant Sean Spell was involved in the incident. As the incident was winding down, Officer Medina was walking away from 38 Kelsey Street in a northerly direction on the sidewalk, and I approached him and I said, "Officer, I need to know your name," because I intended to file an IA on him. "I need to know your name." He refused to identify himself. Now, I believe that there's probably something in the police officer's code of conduct or the policies and procedures that when a member of the public asks you to identify yourself, you're required to do so. One, that's why they put a name tag and a badge number on police officers, is so a member of the public says, "That's Officer Peruta, he's badge number 4. That's Officer Smith, he's badge number 25. You know who to talk about. And even if you don't see the name tag, you see the shield number or the badge number. Now, so I filed my request on August 26, 2016. And I received a response from the Hartford Police Department dated August 26, 2016. And the response is as follows, and it's from a Sophia Ramon, subject FOI request, Freedom of Information request dated August 26, 2016. Now, before I read this, I want to explain that I said to the attorney acting as the hearing officer that I've got about 41 years experience doing FOI. And one thing that I have learned, either correctly or incorrectly, is there are two distinctly different types of requests under FOI. There's the request for prompt access to inspect records, meaning I just want to look at them. And there's the request for copies of records, which triggers a 4-day window. They have 4 days before you can file your complaint, and they review the records and they do whatever. But there's two distinctly different types of requests. Prompt access to simply inspect it, and then one to get copies. Well, I said to the hearing officer, now, if I'm wrong and they're all treated the same, then the hearing's over and we're out of here. But if I'm right, we have to go and read the response from the City of Hartford, which says, "Dear Mr. Peruta, the Hartford Police Department is in receipt of your Freedom of Information request dated August 26, 2016, received by my office on August 26, 2016. The Hartford Police Department will make a concerted effort to provide said records within a reasonable time frame. But all requests, I am going to emphasize that, all requests are processed in the order they are received. Once we have identified the documents you requested, to the extent they exist, you will be notified." Next paragraph and last paragraph. "Please be advised that under the Freedom of Information laws of the state of Connecticut, the City of Hartford is not obligated to create a document that does not exist. This includes putting a document into electronic format when it exists only in hard copy form. Meaning, if I have a hard copy of a piece of paper, I cannot scan it and give it to you. I'm not obligated to scan it and give it to you as a PDF on a thumb drive or a CD.
Okay.
Now,
but oftentimes they do.
It's a lot cheaper. But, so I said to the hearing officer, I take great exception to the second paragraph talking about all complaints are put into a queue, a list, in chronological order. And that's the way they're addressed. First in, first out. We go right down the list.
Right.
Well, my opinion is the City of Hartford needs to have two lists. One for access to inspect and one for copies. Then you can go down, but you give priority to the prompt access to inspect column rather than the copy column. And I say it for this reason. Some people are aware of the law and have to access and inspect records promptly in order to do their job, i.e., provide information to a news desk. So, the officer that was testifying was Officer Martinez. And I asked for civil penalties, maximum $1,000, against Chief James Ravella. So I started to ask Martinez questions. And I said, so you, or I guess her lawyer asked her questions. And here's what happened. My August 26th request was received and acknowledged on August 26th with a boilerplate form letter. The next time my file was viewed, picked up, investigated, researched, or whatever was November 4th, 2016, approximately 2.5 months later. Well, I don't consider that promptly during normal business hours, and I don't consider that to be in a reasonable amount of time. She went on to explain how picking it up on November 4th prompted an inquiry to Internal Affairs for the photographs of a group of named officers. They had an email that went to Internal Affairs with a list of names of the people that they know were at Park and Kelsey Street, but did not include certain people that we know were at Park or Kelsey Street because the computer system did not record Officer Barone's present, at the time Sergeant O'Brien's present, and then there was somebody else.
Those two I know for sure, and I recall them being mystified that their names were not on the
right.
dispatch.
They weren't on the record, and they came up with a bunch of excuses why. But I asked her, was this list compiled from the Heartbeat computer system? Answer, yes. Are you aware of the fact that Officer Barone's name on the list? No. Are you aware of the fact that sworn depositions have been taken? No. Or yes, whatever. And are you aware of the fact that Officer Barone has testified that he was present on Park Street and can't understand why his name's not in the Heartbeat system? It continues. I asked why I didn't get him. And the answer was officer safety and undercover activities, undercover work. Well, that's a pretty good answer to block an FOI request.
Well, it's like the federal government always says national security.
National security.
What are you supposed to say
now,
about it?
So I proceeded to ask her if Sergeant Shawn Michaels' name was on the list provided to Internal Affairs. She examines it. It's on the second page. It's right there. She said yes. I said, are you aware of a program called Project Longevity? She said yes. I asked her if she'd ever visited the Project Longevity website. She said no. I said, would it surprise you that Officer Shawn Michaels' photograph is published on the homepage of the Project Longevity website? So his photograph is already out there in the public.
So Project Longevity is endangering the life of Sergeant Shawn Michael by continuously having his photograph up on the World Wide Web.
Correct.
Where anybody can go and see what Sergeant Shawn Michael looks like. Project Longevity is putting his life, according to the Hartford Police Department, in danger right now as we speak.
And I believe that there's other officers whose names are on the list. Officer Marfella, I believe, is in some fraternal organization, police organization, like the Emerald Society or something like that.
So the Emerald Society
They've got his photograph up there.
A police officer's life at stake right now as we speak.
Okay, so I kind of asked a bunch of questions, and I've got a 55-minute audio tape, and they're sending me the FOI version, the official version of it. And I kind of stopped for a while. And then the hearing officer started to ask questions. But I did ask her, I said, I sent my request to Chief Ravella. Did you consult with Chief Ravella about the way you responded to this request? she said in the affirmative, yes. And she said that it was Chief Ravella who said, don't give him the records. Now, I asked her, because this comes up all the time.
So Chief Ravella is being sued, and he is asked whether records should be given to a plaintiff in the lawsuit where he is being sued, and he answers the question negatively, says no, don't provide those records. Did he see any conflict in addressing that issue as a defendant in the action?
The federal court, and I said this to the hearing officer, the federal court had dismissed some of the individuals in the lawsuit because we referred to them as John Does. And it was dismissed without prejudice, saying, come back with the names.
Right.
So on the federal lawsuit side, Rachel and the law firm began to try to identify the officers in our video. And it was like pulling teeth. It went so far as I had to print up wanted posters and post them on telephone poles in Hartford, asking Hartford residents to help me identify the officers that we couldn't identify.
And you paid some money to some
I did
people
pay some
who
money.
identified
people. I did. Now, over on the FOI side, okay, when questioned by the hearing officer, it came out that the corporation counsel to give the records out under FOI. And I'm sure that they came up with the reason. But it was the corporation counsel's office. Now, I don't know whether that was advice given to Officer Martinez directly, or it was given to Chief Ravella to Officer Martinez, how it happened. But the hearing officer was very interested in the corporation counsel's involvement in the FOI case because they had the federal case. And Officer Martinez testified, well, it's my understanding that he got the photographs he was looking for. He got the photographs. We were told he got the photographs. So I picked up my request and I said, Officer Martinez, let me read my request to you again. All Hartford Police Department photographs of policemen present. You're telling me I have not received one photograph of any Hartford police officer under this FOI request.
No, what happened was you took your own photographs that you took at the scene, and
I had to explain that.
Right. Well, explain it now.
When Officer Martinez said that I provided photographs to the corporation counsel's office, and she said, well, if he provided photographs, why did he want photographs? And did he already have the photographs? And so when I had to say, can I correct this?
Yeah, no, no. The answer, Officer Martinez, is he does not have the database of photographs that the Hartford Police Department has. That's the answer.
So I explained to the hearing officer that I shoot with a high-definition camera, which takes 30 photographs per second, and when you flip them or you look at them in sequence fast, that is how video is created. It is 30 frames per second times 60 seconds per minute, and that's why you have high definition. And I said to her, you can go in and you can grab one of those 30 frames and it looks like it's a photograph. So I said I had grabbed frames of officers that I was trying to identify. So I had requested all of the officers' photographs which would have been provided with their names. And because if I access it, she went into, do they have a book in internal affairs? No, they do not. All of the officers' names are in a computer data.
Which is
database.
A book, but it's a different form.
So I said, right. And I said, I may get the date wrong, but let me see if I can get this right. Since 1992, every computer system put into government service is supposed to be able to identify and separate exempt from non-exempt information, and is supposed to be able to export certain data fields or fields of information into a format that is workable to the person collecting it. I said, example, we have a photograph of Officer Sean Michael. Export that photograph to a JPEG. Put it on a CD and give it to me. Export these photographs from the book, one at a time. You can export it, okay?
Like they probably did to Project Longevity to post his picture on the website.
Like they could have done to Project Longevity to post his photograph up on the internet. But what I'm saying is, if you read the last paragraph, we don't have to create a document in order to provide a copy of a document. Well, guess what? I said, when the FOI says you have a right to get a copy, it means you got to create a copy. Whether it's a paper copy or an electronic copy, you got to create a copy. Now,
and you charge the person for it.
And you get paid for it. Now,
but
so
but the hearing officer, when I walked in at the end, asked the pointed question, is this a boilerplate response to all requests?
Does everybody that make a request get a copy of this letter?
Whether it's prompt access or copies.
Because I am willing to bet that the hearing officer is going to look at those two paragraphs, one of which is you go into a queue, and she's going to address prompt access versus copies. And she's going to address, because they say, according to the Freedom of Information law, we don't have to make a copy of electronic if it's on, they're going to address that too. Because the more this gets circulated and put out there, they got that information somewhere. Did they get it from Tom Hennick, their education officer?
And can I just comment too? You made an excellent closing argument. We're going to put the tape up on the internet for people to listen to. It's an hour long, but the attorney for the city of Hartford made a 2 or 3 sentence closing argument, which boiled down to basically, we don't have enough time to do this. This argument's getting old. I think what towns or municipalities should do, if they don't have the resources or the time to follow the law, they need to file for injunctive relief. This is what the state of Connecticut does to the federal government, No Child Left Behind. File for injunctive relief saying we cannot follow the law because we don't have the resources, and let a court decide whether you need to follow the law. You can't decide on your own whether you're going to follow the law.
Or go to your elected officials, have them introduce legislation in the legislature,
I can't say to
eliminate FOI.
I can't say to the IRS every April, I don't have the resources to do my taxes. I don't have the time. I got a lot of other stuff going on, so I'm just not going to file my taxes. No, you don't get away with that. You have to follow the law, and if you can't, for some lawful reason, go to court, file for injunctive relief.
On every request.
We'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock, hopefully with Chris Jenko.
Hopefully.
Have a good day, Ed.
Okay.
Thank you.